It's kind of amazing, but Damar Hamlin is out of the hospital. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Rabbi.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. So I just learned just before we went live, you already knew this, that Damar Hamlin was discharged from the hospital yesterday. Of course, we all, I'm sure many of us know that since last Monday, so 9 days ago, he spent a week at the hospital after suffering cardiac arrest during the first quarter of a Monday night football game between the Bills and the Bengals. It was stunning video to see. I'm not much of a football player, although when I was in junior high, I went to a school that mandated that we play football, and I was the right guard. And so that means I stood right next to the quarterback, and every time I'd bang into someone, I felt so guilty, I'd just help them up. My team hated me.
Let's acknowledge the irony of this particular face-to-face. That two guys who are not generally athletically inclined or sports-oriented are having this conversation. I'm delighted to be having it. I thought it was a great option for us to talk about, but there is a bit of irony to that.
Although it's not lost on me. When I was growing up with my father is, if I'm not sports, my father is like a million times more. He's
Super
a
cool.
philosophy science guy, and he bought a big poster that we put in our family room that had all these different sports balls on it, and it said "Boys will be boys." It was the most ridiculous thing to hang in our house because neither of us had ever seen a ball. All right, so the question for today is, in light of what happened to Damar Hamlin, should we Jews be okay with a sport like football? And let me just say from the get-go, I'm not suggesting, although I think I believe this, I'm not suggesting that football is an inherently violent sport. Again, I think I do believe that it is. But just by its very nature, it is a dangerous sport. And so how do we Jews feel about danger versus violence, sports in general? What do you think?
So this was something I really didn't know where we could go with this. But the more I dug in, the more I realized that there are a number of questions that we should be asking. And I think probably the first one is, how do Jews feel about sports? And putting aside the fandom, okay, because that should be a part of the conversation. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
The notion of sports being something that is good for our bodies really signals that we're very good with sports. Traditional Jewish sources have certain. Let's face it. In addition to valuing learning, we do value, and Jewish law requires that we take care of our bodies. Right?
You know what, though? Sorry, I just want to interrupt you because it's ironic. It's a bit ironic because, of course, you're right that we value taking care of our bodies, and yet I remember learning about how Jewish communities were so felt that they needed to push back against Greek influence and Roman influence,
Right.
which were very, physical. And for us, it was, just let us study our books. And we probably should have been, if we were really embracing Jewish values, more physical in that sense.
Right. And I think that is where the certain reservations come about public sporting events. It's not the sport necessarily as it is. We didn't want to identify with, or we didn't want to take on the surrounding culture. Right? And that's a very simplistic answer to a much more complex thing. But fundamentally, I think Judaism says we view healthy bodily activities and friendly competition as something that's constructive in our lives. And we can turn to any number of Talmudic scholars who were gifted athletes.
Really?
So, yeah, yeah. I won't. We'll look it up.
I didn't know that.
So
That's
go
awesome.
look it up. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about football and others. Here's where I spent some time thinking. Okay? I'm going to make a distinction today between sports that are violent and aggressive and sports that are dangerous, right? Because I think that there are sports that are specifically violent and aggressive. So let's take boxing. Okay, you may not know, but between World War I and World War II, Jews were the dominant ethnic group in professional boxing. Okay? We had more boxing champions than the Irish or the Germans or even the black community. Okay? Boxing was, this is a real sidebar here, became an attractive way of rising up in the world and demonstrating that we were not weaklings or cowards. So, no surprise that Jews in America became boxing champions. But it is an aggressive sport. And short of maybe a mouth guard and your gloves, you don't really have a lot of protection.
Right.
Okay? You get pummeled in the head and in the body. Okay? You've got ice hockey. Okay? Now, here's what's kind of interesting about ice hockey. Right? It's not particularly dangerous in and of itself. And you do have a good bit of protection on you, right? But ice hockey has become almost an expected specter of violence. The
And by the way,
brawls.
you said before we have to talk at some point about us as consumers of these sports. We that's us. That's on us, right? We go to
That's
hockey
right.
games, right?
That's correct.
And we want the fights. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, brawls on the ice have become, a draw rather than a
Right.
distraction.
Right.
Right. So we've got sports that are considered violent, aggressive. Hey, um, I'm gonna throw in fencing. Okay, you may not know this, Rabbi David, but I used to fence. Okay,
See, you are
um,
sporty.
I wouldn't exactly say that, but I did do fencing prior to college, and then actually when I was in college, it was like an intramural sport that I could take. Now think about fencing. Okay, fencing it is defined as a combat sport. Right? And at its earliest, in its earliest iteration, sword fighting was certainly all about combat. But it turns out that there's very little danger in it. Hey, you are extremely well protected. It's like a good Jewish.
Isn't there
Uh,
a ball at the end of the pokey thing? The sword, whatever.
there is a small ball. Jeez.
I
Uh,
don't know. Do you know
okay.
how much? You know what
There,
I know from fencing? I know that in Wednesday, in the series Wednesday, she fences. That's all I know.
I don't know the series Wednesdays.
Oh gosh.
Well, hey, folks, between the two brains here, we've got one good one. But think about fencing. Okay, fencing is at its origin it was a combat sport, but on the other hand, it's become more of an art form. It's participants are very well protected. What are you going to get injured on? You may get a twisted ankle, or some sort of repetitive, injury in your wrist, but you're not getting killed in fencing. So I look at these three different sports, and I say, you've got one that is definitively aggressive. You've got one that is not by definition so aggressive, but it's become aggressive. And then you have something that was aggressive, but now has become not aggressive, and their participants are very well protected. So what do we say about sports that are aggressive? Okay, well, we got to understand what Judaism says about aggression. Right? And aggression is one of those few tendencies in Judaism that Judaism doesn't strive to legitimize or elevate on an ongoing basis. Judaism recognizes that there are times when one needs to be aggressive, that individual or national defense, right, you're allowed that, but not in a personal way or as a national value,
or a sport.
Right? So sports that emphasize or cultivate aggression probably are not ones that are the right choice, who are looking for somebody who is looking to be motivated by Jewish ethics. Okay? Now, there's another one. We've got violent and aggressive, but then we have dangerous.
Yep.
Okay? So free solo climbing, or rock climbing, or base jumping, or cliff diving, okay, are not aggressive, okay, but they are extremely dangerous. Right? So the question is, are we allowed to do that? I want to hold off on that, because I want to just stick in another question, and that is the question of whether wearing of protective equipment mitigates any
Right.
of this. Okay? And I think that in contact sports, where a violent act could lead to injury or, God forbid, death, that danger should be mitigated. Right? And I think that Judaism would argue that whatever the expense, or in whatever way, by virtue of the rules, or equipment or penalties, that even at the loss of monetary gain, because it's not nearly as fun watching people beat the crap out of each other on the hockey field, or on the hockey rink ice. You got that one? You get that little?
Yeah, I got that one.
I wasn't talking about ice hockey. I was really talking about field hockey. Okay, right. Field hockey is played on the field. All right, so
yeah, but they don't fight in field hockey, do they? Isn't it just ice hockey?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not the way our ice hockey players fight. I think that whatever it takes to mitigate those dangers, Judaism would say, yes, we should do that, even if there is some sort of, we'll call it, loss.
I do think, though, that it's a very interesting distinction between danger and aggressive, because on the one hand, of course, you should mitigate risk. Of course, you should mitigate danger. I mean, anybody with any seichel, with any sense, would argue that, to the extent that you can, you should do that. But what that fails to address is, on sort of a philosophical or theological level, are we okay with sport activities that are by definition about maybe this is unfair, but from my perspective, by definition about hurting other people.
Boxing.
Or football. I mean, I understand that the
Well,
point of football is not to hurt someone. I understand that the point is to get the ball into the end zone. But the only way to get that done is to bang into a bunch of people. And so, on a philosophical level, despite all of the protections that we can put in place, and certainly headgear that players wear has evolved and gotten much better, and yes, there are also studies about the trauma that can be caused by it. But putting all of that aside, are we as Jews okay with the idea that people should intentionally, as you said, beat the crap out of each other?
So that leads me to another question. I think we should get to the ethics of Judaism requiring us to maybe avoid patronizing.
Okay.
I think that is a valuable question. I think that there's a question before that, and that is, okay, we do lots of things that are dangerous. We do lots of things that could cause us harm. Okay? And even we have jobs, right? And so that are dangerous. Right? Somebody has to do them. We can mitigate those risks. We can set up all kinds of safety procedures. Right? But my question is, to the football player, is that his job? Right? Is the athlete, that is their job, right? And so if that's the case, then are you allowed, right? What jobs that are dangerous are allowed? You're allowed to engage those, even or in order to support your family.
So
Right? That
can I share a responsa with you? So I came
sure.
across this. So this is from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. And
Mm-hmm.
he was asked, is it permissible to play professional ball despite the danger of getting hurt? And he finds a quote from the Talmud up here, which is here it is, where in the Torah it says, "You shall give him his wage on his day, and not let the sun set over it." It's about paying people on time,
Mm-hmm.
for he is poor and he risks his life for it. And so
Right.
the Talmud explains that the reason that you have to pay people on time is that this person may have risked his life doing his job, maybe suspending himself from a tree to gather olives or dates. But here's what he says about contact sports. He says, and he does exactly what you just did. He connects it to livelihood. It's permitted to engage in a livelihood even if it involves a slight risk. Also, it should be permitted when there is a remote danger of killing others. So boxing, right? For what is the difference between the prohibition against killing others and the prohibition against killing oneself? That is to say, if you're okay putting yourself at slight risk, then you should be okay putting others at slight risk. Killing oneself is also prohibited as murder, but it is permissible to take the risk for the sake of livelihood when the chances are minimal. So it's always about degree.
Right.
Seeing as such is the case, it is also permitted when the minimal risk involved concerns injuring someone else. If this would not be so, how would it be permitted for the owner of a tree to hire a worker to climb it? So this isn't just about sports. Yet this reasoning is only true if the other person takes the risk willingly, which is another interesting piece of this. Otherwise, it would not be permitted to put others in even the slightest risk if they are unaware of it or if it is against their will. Now, I would argue that football players, I shouldn't argue this because I don't actually know, but they're not playing against their will. But I do wonder if we as consumers have a role in pushing them because of the money they can earn and the fame and all that, in pushing them into dangerous sports. And I wonder how Rav Moshe would feel about that.
Yeah, I think you nailed that, and it's a great response. Right? Um, now, what is our responsibility as athletes to um, to mitigate our risk and to understand that and do the calculation. Right? And what is it as a society that we say this is just too dangerous, right? And wow, if we're going to really kind of expand out, this is where ethics of our society come into play because we outsource
Mm.
our needs to others, okay, when it's dangerous or expensive.
Right. The guy climbing the tree. Right. The people who that we send up into our palm trees to get the
Right.
coconuts down. Right. Right.
Or the people who are mining
Yeah.
precious
Right.
metals or rare metals under not great conditions in countries outside of the United States.
Right.
Um,
And again, we're
and
not for you and I aren't forcing them to, but we are benefiting from and consuming what they create, which pays them, which encourages them to do that work, I guess.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we get to the ethics of this. Should we avoid patronizing sports that are aggressive or violent? All right, what's your
Can I
feeling
just,
on?
can,
There you
well,
go.
I just want to throw something else in. I think that people often think about the Torah as, and as this peaceful book. We're so quick to condemn the Quran as a violent book, and whenever someone does that, I say to people, "Have you read the Torah? Have you read the Bible?" It's interesting that there is a lot of violence that is either sanctioned or the rabbis are hesitant about it, and so they push us a little bit away from it. But like, no one ever comes out, I feel, and in Judaism and says, you know, don't be violent. I don't.
Well, this is a way general comment of saying that the Torah is a eminently realistic book.
Yeah.
Okay, it does not hold everybody out as perfect individuals. Okay, we struggle with acts of violence, and we struggle with our urges to do those acts of violence, and we struggle with what what we need to do in order to not be aggressive, but when we're threatened, we need to
Right.
be aggressive. And I think that the big question here is how do we define the threshold?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would we be okay with fencing if they didn't have a face mask? Or, for that matter, a bodyguard, right?
Yeah.
And the possibility is you get your eye poked out.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We'd
I,
probably be less. Right? Same
well,
thing with sport, with any other sport.
my kids make fun of me because I never allowed even
That's
water
so
guns
easy.
in my home. Never allowed water guns. But
Yeah.
if I have a choice of movies, I'm going to choose, I'm going to watch John Wick every time, which is about as violent and gruesome as it gets. I mean, I love watching football. And so, am I contributing to this culture of aggression? Yeah, I am. And
Yeah.
I am. I mean, I'm not. Should my Jewish values tell me? Do my Jewish values tell me that I shouldn't be participating in that? That's a little. My morality tells me I shouldn't. I'm not as clear that my Jewish values tell me I shouldn't.
Yeah, because it may be hard to draw a straight line, right? I think about there are lots of studies out there that conclusively demonstrate that children imitate the violent
Mm,
response of adult spectators in contact sports.
yeah,
Right? Kids learn, to get in there and
yeah,
shout at the players or shout and well, if I'm going to go to a game, all right, I want to watch. I want to watch it, but I'm going to be respectful of the individuals on the field. All right, and so, is there a way that we can watch sports uh, and not contribute to a more violent society? Yes, I think we can. Right? Do we have to give up sports? No, I don't think
right.
we have to. I think that it's about mitigating risk. Right?
I think a good litmus test of, are we appreciating the sport for the sport's sake and not glorifying the violence, is actually how the world, or specifically how the NFL and the teams responded to Damar's collapse. And I know there was some, or there continues to be, I guess, some debate about how it was handled or who chose what. But the fact that that game was called off, the fact that both the coaches of both teams apparently went to each other and said, "Yeah, we're done."
We can't. We're not doing
Right.
this.
That as long as we always continue to put life and health first. In fact, in this article I was reading about Damar being Mr. Hamlin. I don't know what I should call him. Hamlin. Damar Hamlin being discharged. Sean McDermott, the coach of the Bills, said that they're. I actually thought there was this kind of a strange comment, that they're going to leave it up to Hamlin when he would like to return to the team facility. The idea that he would return at all, to me, is a little crazy. If I'm the football player who's just suffered this injury, whether it was football's fault or not, it happened on the field in my time as a football player. The idea that I would put myself at risk again seems a little crazy to me.
Yeah, but that's, I think, look, why, this might be a little bit over the top, but why is that any different than the person who suffers a heart attack and the doctor says, you got to cut out your salt
Right.
and you got to cut out the fatty foods and you got to cut it, and they go right back to that. Now, is that
Well, I guess I get right. I guess the difference for me comes back to, I'm not participating in them killing themselves. I'm not a spectator watching them, paying them, contributing to the fact that if someone chooses to look, I choose to kill myself every day. I don't go to the gym. I don't work out, right? That's on me. That's not on anyone else.
okay?
For football players, for hockey players, for the guys who are up in the trees getting the coconuts down, that is on me as a consumer of those things. To a certain extent, I do bear responsibility for that.
Okay, but Damar Hamlin could say, you know what, I'm done. All right, too much risk, and I'm gonna choose not to do this. Okay, and there are plenty of football players who go from high school to college and then say, I'm not doing this anymore. Okay, at whatever point along the way, too risky. Okay,
Right.
that's on them. Right? Now, I think that we as a society elevate our sports figures, right, to hero status, and therefore there is something very seductive about participating in that. Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Um, I
And
think
I
there is a
guess
love for the sport. Right?
right.
There's a love for getting out on the field.
Right. I want to be clear that there is tremendous value to just the fact that I don't do it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the value that sport brings. The sense of community that's built around different teams, the competition, all that stuff is good. For me, it really comes back to that question that you raised at the beginning about you can mitigate danger. You can't really mitigate against violence. The nature of so much in our society is built around adversarial, competitive, nasty violence.
I think I just want to be clear. I think that there are attempts to mitigate against the violence. Look, okay. Guys out on the hockey ice who get into a fight get thrown into the penalty box. Right? And if you've gone to a hockey game and you go onto a power play because the other team's guy has been thrown in the penalty box, that's a very big advantage. Right? So
yes, it's an advantage, but come on. You can't tell me that being thrown in the penalty box is a what's the word? What's the word when you put someone in jail for murdering? It's supposed to. What's the word?
Rehabilitate? Or...
No, not like it stops them from doing it again. It's not
a deterrent.
A deterrent. It's not a deterrent throwing someone in the box. That's part of the game. That's no one doesn't foul another guy or get into a fight because they think they're going to get thrown in the penalty box. They know they're going to get thrown in the penalty box.
And that's a calculated decision on their part. Okay, right. That we're doing just fine, or we can do without one person, right? All right. What if, just for the heck of it, if one, all right, instead of one person being in the penalty box, there's two people in the penalty box. Okay, so now you're down two guys, all right, out on the rink. That's an even bigger advantage to your opponents. Is that a more of a deterrent? We're going to lose this game if we foul somebody and get caught. Right.
Right.
Is the deterrent enough? Right.
I guess what I'm suggesting is that if teams that haven't won in decades still have fans. Mm-hmm. Teams that don't engage in the fight lose their fans like that. If you had a team that refused to rough up someone else, refused to hit hard, the fans would walk away. If they hit hard and win, okay, maybe I am.
I think you're wrong because as long as they win, all right? If you've got guys who can dance around the ice and pass in ways that I've never seen before, and can win and can do it without the fight, that's what the fans want. Now the question is boxing. Okay,
right.
That's where we get into.
Right. That's different. Yes.
Okay, because what is the ultimate goal?
Right.
Right. To land a punch. Every time you land a punch, you get a point. Or
that really is
at the end of the thing is going to be declared the winner, even if there isn't a knockout.
That really is the more interesting. Then, that really. Now that you've said that really is the more interesting sort of test case, right? Football, you could make the argument. I'm not sure I buy it yet, but that the violence is secondary to the goal.
There is that. I think that is. Look, you got a defense, right? An offense and a defense. The offense may be able to, do one of these and get around and get down the field, but you need an offense to hit the other guys.
Yeah, right? But this is the problem. It's not hit.
I get it.
Beat the shit. It's.
Hey.
Sorry,
it's
clean
show.
Clean show. I mean, I guess that's where I'm. The only way to win is to tackle the other guy. And I think you're right. I think boxing is a unique and really interesting thing that we may want to look at some point. I just, look, I'm going to keep watching football.
And I am too.
Yeah.
Okay. Not a lot, but I will.
If there's a team winning that I've heard of, I usually turn it on.
Okay, well that's good.
That's kind of my, like, I watch Miami. Are they the Heat? No, that's basketball.
Dolphins.
Dolphins, right? The Dolphins.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to my San Francisco 49ers, because I grew up in the time of Joe Montana and Roger Craig and all of the great individuals in the early 80s, winning a lot of it. And hang on one second here, I got to come back. Okay, here's my mug. All right, that I keep all my pens in.
Oh, nice.
Okay, Super Bowl 1985. Okay, when by the way, San Francisco beat Miami.
Oh, now you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, well,
now you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
I'm looking.
I
don't
my
have
job
anything.
Is secure enough.
I'm a Patriots guy, being from Boston. I don't have Patriots.
Wrong, and more wrong.
Yeah.
Good thing.
My Lord. Hey,
all
Rabbi.
Right.
Speaking of nonviolence, I heard there's something special happening this Friday. What's up?
I can't even tell you how excited I am for tomorrow night. Hopefully you're going to all join us for our annual. This is 15 years that we have been doing our annual interfaith. Dr. Martin Luther, 15 years, 2008.
That's amazing.
Interfaith. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Shabbat. We honor his life and his legacy. And Pastor Arthur Jackson III from Antioch Missionary Baptist Church is going to be our preacher, and he's bringing his choir. It's going to be a very lively night. So
that's amazing.
Come join us.
That's fantastic. Awesome.
All right. Well,
thank you, sir.
Have a good one.
Have a lovely rest of the day, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.